ghostly mark. Cobwebs twine and shadows dance in this twilight somber trance. Candles flicker, weary wicks, ancient echoes, time's cruel tricks. Marble figures, frozen pose, amidst the silence sorrow grows. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room. Chandeliers and crystal tears reflect forgotten yesteryears, softly chanting distant cries. Through the arches sorrow sighs. Gargoyles watch with stony gaze, guardians of endless maze. Pipe organ's breath begins to rise, filling air with mournful ties. Whispering shadows, secrets keep in the depths where night meets sleep. Underneath the velvet gloom, guardians of the haunted room.
Good afternoon / evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lady Red of the Black Pants Legion, and I have come to yell at you again about book-shaped things, and for his sins, I have also dragged in Lictor. Say hi, Lictor.
Say hi, Lictor.
Good job, well done.
Yes, I am capable of repeating orders. Yes, introspective crab. No crab battle.
No crab battle. Though, if you do wish to engage in crab battle, the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake is out. I haven't experienced it for myself as yet, but you know, crab battle is available. Lictor is extremely quiet. Let me see if I can do something about that. We did have to futz with sound last week. There we go. Let's see if that helps at all.
The futzening has begun.
Futzening is very, very important.
Yes, it has begun, and we should commence it with extreme vigor.
It's Doctor Who is even more quiet because he's not with us this week, because I think we'd just descend into another hour of yelling about how bad a certain book is, which we are going to touch. He's in the shame corner. You're not in the shame corner. I just know what will end up happening. Doctor Who has unfortunately finished the book. I have not. We are going to talk a little bit about Hungry Like the Wolf this week, but we're also going to be very productive crab people. Because we must.
We must be the good serotinoids that we are. We must hammer. Production must continue.
Yes.
The quota must be met.
All right. I've turned Lictor up as much as I am capable of doing, I believe. If he's still a little quiet, is there anything else I can do? Let's see if that helps.
I can try to do something on my end.
Is that any better, chat?
Hello. Am I any better?
Well, I'm hoping that you are.
Is
That's
it
better. Excellent. There we go. We've hopefully fixed things so
very
that
good?
you can scream at me in an audible way.
I will scream at you in a manner that our audience is capable of observing.
Doctor Who, you are very welcome to join to come and talk about that bit because I think chat should also hear that. Let's get this out of the way. So let's see what chat's saying. The Battletech romance is nowhere near as the book my wife discovered. There are some terrible books out there, and as bad as Hungry Like the Wolf is, I have also read worse. One of the worst books I've read that I am desperate to get my hands back on so that I can inflict it on my book club was a book that my sister bought me in the wake of Twilight, because my sister knew my taste and my sister worked for a bookstore at the time, and she bought me a book that looked lovely. It had a nice white and silver cover and the pages were all edged in black, and it was just a striking book to look at. Unfortunately, once you opened the book and started reading, it had this really annoying habit of going between the female lead and the male lead chapter by chapter, but one was in third person and one was in first person. And both of them were possibly some of the most annoying people on the planet. And of course, it was a vampire drama, and it was very stupid. And I threw that book across the room by the time I was done with it and forbade my sister from ever buying me another vampire book again. So, we had that going on, and that was a time. That was a time. So Hungry Like the Wolf is not the worst book I've read, not by a long shot. And I know somebody mentioned in chat, I don't know where the comment has gone, I'm not going to go looking for it, but somebody mentioned Omegaverse, which we will never talk about on this show. I refuse. No, it wasn't Twilight von Falkenstein. It was a Twilight knockoff, which was just worse. So let's get my week with Hungry Like the Wolf out of the way. I've only read a couple more chapters because it is just, I am struggling with this book. I wanted to just sit down and just finish it so it was done, and then when I get the time I can just sit and do the rewrite and that would be fine. I wasn't going to make any more notes, but I am struggling physically to read this book because there's spelling mistakes, the formatting isn't great, and we finally got to a point. And I was almost happy. We finally got to a point where mech stuff was happening. And it was awful because every third line was just Alaric thinking about Dr. Elstone while trying to do mech things, and it was very annoying. So this is what I would like you to envision, chat. We have Ilkhan Alaric Ward, First Lord of the newly restored Star League, who's trying to, repair Terra and get his stuff fixed because, oh god, other clan invasions could happen. We need to be ready. Also, the populace I'm now in charge of kind of hate me for good reason, and I'm very paranoid, and I've got all of these things going on. And we get absolutely no build up to how the relationship between Dr. Elstone and the Ilkhan has developed. We just go from, they kind of hate each other but have decided to work together because they both have reason to need Terra to be functional, to they're just in a car one day and start kissing. For no reason. It just happens. And
I thought we're not getting into the prawn industry today.
we are not getting into the prawn industry today because that's as far as it goes. So this happens, and I'm going to have a rant about where that happens in a minute, and then Doctor Who can join us because he also has a very important location rant. But after that, he ends up going back to his HQ where the Sarkhan is like, look, you need to spend some time doing battle mech things because you're distracted and I know this will make you feel better and you've got the doldrums and let me cheer you up. So she's like, here, I've set up this simulation. You're going to have this star. I'm going to have this star. They're exactly the same. You lead these guys. I'll lead these guys. We'll have a 10-minute brawl in the simulator and see who wins and you'll feel better. And of course, he's got his loadout for his Savage Wolf, his personalized mech, and she's in an exact copy of it, and off they go and try and lift the Ilkhan spirits because he's so very depressed and concerned, While they're having this simulated battle, it starts out with, yes, this is absolutely lifting his mood, which is just what his Sarkhan wanted. And then she turns around and starts needling him about the relationship he's having with the Terran woman. And I'm like, this is the exact opposite of why you said you wanted him to do this. But fine, let's go with it. And our Ilkan, who is supposed to be this strategic mastermind, who is just supreme when it comes to being in his mech. It's where he is most comfortable, most competent, completely fails to be of any use because he's distracted by shouting about this woman that he has so far kissed once in a car for no apparent reason. And oh my God, it was driving me up the wall. Like every third line, it was like, he attempts to do this, but he's distracted by thoughts of her. Why? And then he has the audacity to be surprised when he launches a series of missiles and his PPCs and all this different stuff he's launching at Chance Vickers, and she launches the exact same shit back, and he's surprised by it. Oh, also the Beagles are home. They may be shouting momentarily.
The Beagles are good.
The Beagles are good. The Beagles will help. So this is the nonsense that I have been reading in the last week. It's been awful. The prose is pedestrian and annoying and pedantic. The book has bipolar. It cannot retain what it's trying to be for more than a couple of pages at a time. It will go from being this, sort of, oh, sultry will they, won't they, to just, no, they hate each other. And there's no reason why the shift happens. It just happens because the book decides it wants to. This book needs medication. Now, location.
Well, that describes most people.
Some people, possibly many people, but a book shouldn't need medication. It is a book.
The book is supposed to be the medication, not the other way around. If you're taking a book and it makes you angry, well, I can't say it's not doing its job, but it's not the correct genre.
The book is annoying me at this point. But it did another thing that really annoyed me. That really, really annoyed me. And it's the reason why this stream has the title that it has. So, for people who are in the know and have read the travesty that is Twilight, they will know that the state of Washington was treated very poorly. Bella Swan has a very, very poor opinion of Washington State for committing the crime of being green instead of brown because she prefers deserts, which in itself is fine. But the result is the way that the author describes Washington is completely contrary to my experience of Washington. And for those who don't know, I happen to live in Washington State. I don't live in Forks, though it's not that horrendously far from where I am. Washington State is beautiful. It's very old geography. It's a volcanic region. You have the subduction zone where the oceanic plate is diving under the North American continent. So it's all basalt rock and very jagged cliffs here. The geography can be quite sheer and extreme. You get very, very tall cliffs that just drop to water, and it's stunning. You've got old pine forests, ferns everywhere. It's beautiful. And yes, if you're right up against the Cascade Mountains, it does rain a lot because the weather kind of needs to drop its load before it can get over the mountains because they're huge. But there's also vast swaths of the state that are not like that. For example, the area I live in. I live on an island on the Puget Sound, and it means that the weather blows in and then it just blows over us and goes and piles up against the mountains. It's stunning here. We get plenty of sunshine, we get plenty of rain, we get misty mornings, we get Silent Hill fog, we get to watch the cloud banks coming in off of the water. It is beautiful here. And in Twilight, that is not brought across at all. Twilight is just like, yes, Washington is the worst place you could be because deserts are better. And it's annoying, and it made me very upset when I read through the book, especially when they then went on to describe the Cullen House, because the Cullen House does not make sense to build in the state of Washington if it operates the way that Stephanie Meyer described it. Having that much glass and the kind of siding that house has and all of what's going on with it doesn't make sense, because it would just be covered in moss and grime, and it would just be horrible. You'd never build a house that looks like that. Sarah also has opinions and would like to tell you about them. How was your time at the park?
Sarah.
It was great until Anka got into a fight.
Oh no, Anka got in a fight?
She got very protective of her ball, and when another dog decided to come investigate, she lashed out, and then I had to physically peel
Oh,
them
come here,
apart.
baby. Did you have a time? Did you have to tell another dog no?
She started the shit. and
You
it
started the
was
shit? You're a naughty girl.
unwarranted.
You're a naughty girl. You can't do that. You can't do that.
They had a great time up until that point.
Very naughty girl. Maybe you don't get to go tomorrow. She got protective over her ball, apparently, which is, no, we can't be doing that. We can't be doing that.
And to be tossing your weight around like
Checking
that.
to see if I could feel any injuries.
No, she seems fine.
Yeah.
She's just a naughty baby. Very naughty baby.
The first time she chased the dog off, it was just the normal,
Yeah.
all of the noise. And she then used it as a cover to steal her mother's ball.
See, now that's just normal beagle cheekiness if you're
Yes.
stealing her mama's ball.
They met a Beagle Basset mix that was
Oh,
lovely.
do you want to come and tell chat?
Yeah, sure.
You can come join us. Aidan will come and tell us about what the dog's got up to. So anyway, Washington State gets treated terribly in Twilight. So you can imagine my disdain, my horror and my upset when I'm reading through Hungry Like the Wolf. And I know it's set in the Pacific Northwest, that Union City's there somewhere. However, as I'm reading, I'm like, hang on. I think I know the area that's currently being described, because what Dr. Elstone decides to do, because clearly Alaric Ward has no concept of why terror is special and nice and why he should be doing good things. He decides that, she decides, that she needs to take him on a car ride to see just how beautiful the area is. And he's surprised that there's farmland so close to civilization, effectively. And as they're describing it, I'm like, yeah, no, this sounds like the Pacific Northwest. That's fine. And then they drive over a certain bridge, and the way it's described, and the drop off, and the waves crashing underneath, I'm sitting there going, oh no. Oh no, we're not just in Seattle. They just drove over Deception Pass Bridge, which, incidentally, I drive over every Sunday with the dogs to take them to the beach. And it is. And then it directly mentions the San Juan Islands, which we can see from our estate. And I'm like, you are literally in my neck of the woods writing this dross where I live, and how dare you? And I wish to start a petition that no more bad romance books are allowed to be set in Washington State. It has suffered enough. Leave Washington alone!
So, love, to give context, part of the project I've worked with Mo and Squick on.
Yes, I know, but you're making something good.
Yeah, well, comma. Yeah, sure, comma. We were talking about The Last Stand of the Black Watch, which happens, it's the Battle of Gorst Flats. I can point out on a map where Gorst is.
Yeah.
It's near Bremerton, near the Olympian, the Olympians as far as a mountain range goes.
Yeah.
It's, due west of Seattle. You have to cross bits of the Sound to get there, but it's a peninsula. Unity City is basically the area just south of that and kind of to the west of Tacoma and Puyallup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the twin city to Seattle.
Yeah. And it just personally upset me that they drove over my bridge, writing complete dross, and decided to have a kiss there for no reason. And romance books are not allowed to be set in Washington State anymore. It is illegal. You cannot do it. How dare you?
Also, to make
This
report
is
of
how
the
you
dog.
represent passion in people.
Oh God, no, it's not.
Yes, the pig war was mentioned. Yes, they did mention the pig war for no good reason. And the person who brings it up isn't the person who realizes the analogy that should be being used. That comes from Alaric instead. And this book is so bad. Doctor Who, would you like to come and have your Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief rant? Because Yes, Doctor Who
I
rant
agree
time.
with you.
Oh boy.
Pip
Okay,
agrees. You should come and have this rant.
turn off the Twitch. Turn off the Twitch feed so I do not hear double red. Hello,
So you
everyone.
don't hear double doc.
Or double me. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So, one of my absolute. This is along the lines of Lady Red getting absolutely upset at depictions of her neck of the woods being portrayed in utterly stupid ways in in uh, uh, in novels.
In badly written novels, yes.
This happened in a well-written novel. One of my favorite book series is the Percy Jackson and the Olympians.
Mhm.
Rick Riordan did an amazing work researching and translating the ancient Greek and Roman myths into modern day, and then even the Norse and Egyptian myths into modern day. I think he did a really fantastic job researching like that and bringing it to a modern audience, and encouraged a lot of tertiary education where it's just like, what's this thing that this person mentions? Um, oh, I'm going to go on a Wikipedia rabbit hole, and oh God, now I'm an expert in this thing that I read about in a funny book. That's how I spent my time with Assassin's Creed 2. Just researching the Italian peninsula while playing the game. Besides the point. I am going to location myself. I live in the middle of the country, in and around St. Louis, Missouri. There's a landmark in St. Louis, Missouri, that is very noticeable. It is the St. Louis Arch. So, the scene in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief is the kids, Annabeth, Percy, and I forget who the satyr kid, Carter, Grover. Um, they're just like, alrighty, we got to get to LA. How are we going to do this? Let's take the Amtrak because there is if we take an airplane, Zeus is going to see that Percy, who he really hates and wants to kill, is in the air and is going to kill him because he really hates him at the moment because he stole his lightning. Okay, cool. There's an Amtrak. There is not a direct line from the Northeast, from New England down to St. Louis on the Amtrak, but it's possible. We have an Amtrak station in St. Louis. I cannot recall the amount of time. So this is Death Knell 1 for this scene for me. I cannot recall how much time they have on their layover, but I think it was something like 45 minutes or so. Yeah, my back of the napkin math is working. Or like a 45-minute, hour and a half layover before the next train took them down going towards LA. The Amtrak station that they stopped at, I have ridden the Amtrak from that station. During this layover, Annabeth, the architecture nerd, is just like, oh, I want to go and see the arch. And everyone's just like, okay, yeah, cool. We have this layover. That Amtrak station and the St. Louis Arch are, if you do not get stopped at any crosswalks, a 30-minute walk away. So that's an hour.
Yes.
That they do not. That's an hour that they have to factor into their layover, and I think that it was a 45-minute layover. I can't remember. So So that's an hour there and back again. Then it's the time of day. The arch grounds at that time and at that time has normal business hours. It closed like in the evening, and they would have arrived like either as it was closing or closed. Even if it was open, it takes like 10 minutes to ascend in the little pod elevators, and then another 10 minutes to descend. And even if all of this time made sense, Percy jumping from the arch into the Mississippi River is completely impossible. I did the math. I did the monster math. So I found the velocity of an Olympic jumper doing a standing long jump, like absolutely no initial velocity, just the velocity of stand, jump. And then I found the velocity of like a running long jump at an Olympic level. Because, again, despite being 12, this kid is a demigod. So I gave him the best possible reasonable conditions of being an Olympic level athlete. I plugged those into back the napkin math calculators for velocity and trajectory, which is basically just a parabola. The St. Louis Arch is 100 feet. Like 100 feet. No, not 100 feet. 1,000 feet away from the Mississippi River at normal water levels. Even if it was in flood stage, it's only about 600 feet away from the arch. Plugging the math in for both of them puts him woefully short at 200 or 300 feet. And the St. Louis Arch is only like 400 feet tall. So even if it was a once in a millennium flood and the water was all the way up there, it would be ankle deep at best, and he would be paced. Even then, considering the fact that he's up in the air and the god of the sky wants to kill him, he does not have a tailwind. Quite literally my only complaint about anything that Rick Riordan has ever wrote. Doctor Who's rant about the St. Louis Arch, over.
Thank you. And this is why you should try to be accurate in your books, because there's someone out there who's going to be like, I know where you're writing about and I know you haven't been there. And I'm going to rip you a new one because I know better, and how dare you?
So it's not just locations either. So here's the thing.
The physics of the entire situation was
That too.
completely shit.
So, I mean, there's a TV trope page for that. What is it? Sci-fi authors have no sense of scale. Like, most authors aren't physics majors, so that's gonna happen.
Most authors can't imagine, can just think about the timescales people throw in their books.
Yep.
Can you imagine nations existing for 6,000 years, stable?
Yeah.
Long.
Single dynasties lasting for multiple centuries.
Society not evolving in any significant manner over 200 years.
Yep.
So
you've got that.
I gave him the best possible physical conditions to try and do it.
Well, he didn't do physics. He did demigods. Frankly, he was going off the physics. I go fight the river because he tried to wash away the bodies. Okay,
so
he was going off that sort of physics.
So it's not just locations as well that I was gonna get at, because I'll give an example. There is an anime that Lady Red and I have seen that we're fond of called Shiki.
Yes. Also, Water Break and Pets.
Water Break and Pets. You have the dogs currently. Shiki is very much an homage to, I don't remember the name of the Stephen King story. Is it Salem's Lot is the one about vampires taking over the town? Either way, uh the thing about Shiki is that it is simultaneously a slow burn vampires take over rural Japanese village story that goes into horrifying approaches to holy shit, everything is getting turbo fucked. But one of the main protagonists, one of the main humans trying to overcome the vampire takeover, is the village doctor. And the author behind Shiki is a bit of a fan of medical dramas, and there will be sequences where the doctor character earns his reputation among the fan base as basically being anime Doctor House. Because he'll have a sit down with his nurses at a staff meeting and they just start belting out jargon left, right, and center. Now, we introduced this to a good friend of ours who works in the medical profession, and it almost turned him off of the show as a whole. Like, he ended up watching it through and thought it was a good time. But when you start moving into specialized knowledge, whether it's geographical, leave Washington State alone, shitty romance, please, for the love of God, or you start talking matters professional, like every time I look at maintenance and logistics and battle tech, I flinch because that's my professional background is maintenance of aircraft and logistics in a military standpoint. So I look at it, I'm like, oh, because if you don't have intimate professional knowledge in that field, then you're gonna either need to do a absolute fuckload of research to nail it down and get it right, or you will always have the audience that is, professionally steeped in what you're writing about, who are going to see the errors and see the flaws. And it's hard to turn off because if you're doing something every day professionally, then your brain is going to pick up on all of the discrepancies. It's gonna be a thing.
Yeah.
Which
I mean,
oh
can you imagine all the times people describe Jerusalem to other people in so many
Mm-hmm.
books? And can you just
Yep.
so that
It's
little donk 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 sound I hear in the distance anytime that happens is just you bashing your head against a table, right?
again no wailing wall?
but yeah, it's
So of course,
Ever
dang.
as
ever considered how far it is to Arm? It's about 30 minutes drive.
Yep. I mean, it's part of why I struggle with trying to run something like Shadowrun as a game. Is I'm from small town America. I've spent very little time in big major metroplexes. So my understanding of how big cities work and how life functions in big cities is extremely limited.
Yep.
I could defer to Doc, for example, after your rant
Yes.
about St. Louis. You understand city living a hell of a lot better than I do. So if I
Yeah,
tried to
no,
run
yeah,
if I
a
tried to run a
30-minute
game,
drive, a 30-minute drive in an inner city does not equate to a 30-minute drive on the highway. You drive 30 minutes, you go around the block in a city. You drive 30 minutes on the highway, you're 5 towns over.
exactly. So if I tried to run a game of Shadowrun for folks like you, Doc, who are lived in big cities,
Oh, if you don't,
it's
if
going
you
to be
said it in
jank as
St. Louis,
fuck.
I am going to rip you apart.
Oh God, yes. But even without it being St. Louis, just my lack of personal understanding of big city life, it's going to be jank as fuck.
which, if we bring this back to sort of the point of this stream and just, what we do here is, at the end of the day, anything you write, if you don't have the personal in-depth knowledge, you're going to get something wrong and it's going to upset somebody if they read it. So what authors are always aiming for and angling for is suspension of disbelief and glossing over what it's acceptable to gloss over, because at the end of the day, what happens at the St. Louis Arch in Percy Jackson, it isn't the core point of the book. And yes, people are going to notice,
it's
but
a Passover
fine.
scene.
Yeah.
It's a Passover scene,
And-
but it stuck with me more than the confrontation
because
with
you
Mars
know about
at the
it.
beach in Las Vegas.
But of
Or Los
course,
Angeles.
you are like 0.1% of the audience that's going to pick up that book, so it's fine. Same with Hungry Like the Wolf. This is not a book that's supposed to... I shouldn't be taking it as seriously and personally as I do. It's a gloss over moment, but for me, it stands out because I know it. But there's also, you know, it's finding that happy middle ground of knowing that you're not going to please all of the people all of the time, but putting in the appropriate amount of effort to try and please as many people as much of the time as you can with a reasonable suspension of disbelief.
All right, and now putting a pin into ranting about poorly written literature. Let's set the table for preparing for better written literature, and I will go and make rice balls.
You should definitely do that. Thank
have
you,
a
Doc.
pleasant evening,
Doc,
yes,
Doc,
yes,
before
yes.
that happens, I was called in here to provide a field report, and I think you should be here for the field report.
Before the field report
okay.
happens, I have one thing to ask Doctor Who.
Yes.
What did Mo send you, Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah. So yes, Mo came into chat last Lego stream and said, "Hey, Doc, I have something for you." And I said, "All right, fine, send it. It's a shit post anyway." Mo sent me the Lego Ideas Edward Cullen house,
Yep.
and I hate it.
You
I
do.
hate it because it's legitimately a well-built Lego house. If this was just like fancy modern Lego house with no name connotations, it is a very, very good house. The truck is even well built.
I would like...
It's the fact that it has Twilight associated with it.
I would like to read you the message I got from Mo before this happened.
Yes.
So he DM'd me and he said, "I wish to pay the doctor back on your behalf and allow everyone a good laugh in the process. Fun fact, Doc has given me the ability to send him Lego sets for his stream. One of my contacts reminded me that Lego has the Cullen house from Twilight on sale. I think he should put that together while reading tidbits Lego includes in the instruction book, because that would be fun to watch." And I went, "Send it." You deserved it.
Person. No, I did send you utter tripe. I did send you 161 pages of utter tripe.
You did.
Vengeance.
Anyway, pop
Although I
day.
sent you $13 of utter tripe. This is 250.
Look, Mo is both very willing to throw money at shitposts for the fun of it, and also he is categorically a Shadowrun fixer.
He is.
No, like Mo is an amazingly resourcefully logistical individual, and I don't question how he gets things. He just gets things, and I'm just like, no, I'm not even gonna ask. I'm not even gonna ask.
Oh, Varathragna, that's horrible.
You'd
Imagine
catch a horrible
stepping
disease.
barefoot on a Lego in the dark and then realizing it's part of the Cullen house as well. That's how you become sparkly. That's where the infection gets
No,
you.
the Japanese festival is coming to St. Louis, and I need to prepare snacks for people attending it, so I need to get cooking. Also, speaking of cooking, cookery will return. I have purchased an island. I
Hurrah!
purchased a kitchen island. It will be here soon. I have looks over shoulder an Eiffel Tower to build before I get back to cooking.
Oh, I look forward to it. Cooking
I am going to
shenanigans
go
are good.
make jelly donuts.
Yes, go make jelly donuts. Aiden, tell us about dogs.
So the dogs went to the park, and it was a quiet day. So there was a lot of ball chasing and fetching. I still do not understand how one beagle can contain so much poop, but Pip continues to baffle and confuse me. But what ends up happening is over the course of the day, multiple other dogs show up. One was a lovely Beagle Basset mix who had the pattern of a cow, honestly, white coat with brown, that cow brown splotchy pattern. And they were very happy to see beagles, and it turned into a large romp and stomp. There was another dog that showed up towards the end, a precious little dog named Sage, no relation to Aloysius's dog. But Sage also had a snippet of the beagle with the white tail tip. A lot more mixed in there. I'm not entirely sure what. And they were having a good time. Until Anka decides that it is time to become super turbo territorial with her ball and be a little asshole about it. Now, the first time was entertaining because Sage came to investigate Anka, and Anka flipped out and, chased Sage off and screamed a lot and made a lot of noise, which startled the shit out of the other two beagles who were laying around next to Anka because they were in a big old beagle bun, a beagle bagel pile, all with their own balls, and they were having fun chewing on their balls. So when the other two beagles get up, startled, Anka then turns around, swoops in, and snatches the ball from under her mother and runs off with it. I like to imagine that she was cackling internally the whole way.
Likely.
She is a menace. A right menace. Just like Saris is a right menace because she kept going to the fountain where the drinking water was and then just sitting her filthy butt down in the drinking water where she could wash her ball and cool off.
Need I remind you that Saris made eye contact with me and pissed on my ottoman?
Yes,
Yes,
she
he
did.
did. That was such a bizarre moment.
I'm still
Oh.
sorry, but it's also still funny. But I am sorry. I have no idea why she did that.
This went on like an amazingly long walk. Where did she have this?
Yep.
She's
I
never
got
done
nothing.
it any time before or since. I don't know what happened.
All I know is that Anka has learned to be a vindictive little shit from her mother, which is why she got into a fight with a dog 3 times her size, because the dog was sniffing around her ball, and she's like, "No, bitch, this is my ball." And I had to physically pull Sage and Anka apart and hoist Anka off of the ground because she wanted to go. She wanted to throw hands in the worst way. I'm like, "Nope. We are leaving." And the other guy's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, Anka started this. Your dog was defending themselves. This little hellion is gone utterly apeshit." The Dachshund do that. Oh no, a Dachshund doing the eye contact feedback.
All right, I really do
Anka
need
will
to
do.
get to
Anka
cooking,
will.
and I think
Have
Red
you-
really needs to get to writing.
Yeah.
Go.
Anka will make eye contact with me every so often before she pops a squat on the carpet in the house. And
I will
it's
be
always
lurking in chat, watching as I cook.
That sounds
It's-
good.
it's always
you
concerning
guys
when
later.
she does it. Have a good dog.
Alrighty. Let's do some useful stuff today. So, for those who weren't here last week, I suspect most of you were here last week, but for those of you who weren't, November is sort of traditionally, in big inverted commas, because it's not been going for that long, but November is a big writing month. It was when NaNoWriMo took place, still takes place, which is National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo. And the goal is to write about 80,000 words in a month, which is very doable. It's not nearly as difficult as it sounds, and it's a really good way of getting a first draft out. And of course, the reason why November's such a great month to do it is in, a large swath of the world. It's grey, it's cold, it's miserable. Yeah, it's a time for being inside. It's a great time to write. I don't know if Nano is back or not, Geth. So for me, I've always been aware of NaNoWriMo, but I've never officially taken part. I liked the concept, and I've always used it as a personal motivator, but I've never used their site or any of the resources that they offered. And unfortunately, when AI started becoming a thing, NaNoWriMo kind of went through a bit of a downturn with what its attitude was to how it wanted to work with that and not. Mo, it's a shame you weren't here like 20 minutes ago. I got Doctor Who to tell chat what you bought for him and why. So NaNoWriMo, I've never done it officially, but I like the concept, and I use that every November. I will sit down and write 50,000 to 80,000 words minimum, and get some ideas out onto paper. It does go well beyond AI. You're quite right, Geth. But that was sort of the death knell, and we saw a real downturn from there. But as I say, I've never directly engaged with NaNoWriMo. I like the concept, though, of November is novel writing month. And one of the things that will make a novel writing month successful is making sure that you do prep work before it. There is an author I follow online for her insight and her resources, who I've talked about on this stream before, and I will talk about again because she is wonderful. Her name is Abby Emmons, and I hate every single book she's ever written because she doesn't write a genre I'm interested in. She writes kind of fluffy and interesting and engaging romance stories and that sort of thing. She writes them well, which is just not my genre. I do not like her books. However, her knowledge and insight of how writing works and the way that she approaches putting things together is universally applicable to nigh all writing. She's a very intelligent lady. I use her resources. Her resources helped me to develop my own resources that I use for things. She also uses Scrivener, which is my writing program of choice, and I learned some tips and tricks of how I can use Scrivener from her. So she is one of my online writing resources that I use and like. And she also has some wonderful writing music playlists, which is lovely, and I do take advantage of those. And she makes sure to offer musical playlists outside of the genre that she most commonly writes. So she's a very good resource. And she always spends October doing big planning for whatever book she's writing in November. She, however, is not constrained by the fact that she has 2 to 3 hours on a Friday once a week to do that with the best chat on Twitch. We are, however, stuck in that predicament. So I thought what it would be good for us to do, now that we've gotten the majority of Shoal and its feel and our understanding of it all sorted out, it would be good for us to move into, well, how do you plan a book? How do you start getting started? How do you do all of this prep work? What do you need in order to write a book in November or whatever month you choose to write in, to produce an entire story? And that has always been one of my goals with this stream, is I want to write a book with Twitch chat, which is possibly one of the most insane things to want to do, but I want to do it anyway. So that's
do quality shit post.
Yes, we're going to make a very big quality shit post that's going to be at least 80,000 words long. I believe in us. I think we can do it. So that's kind of where we're going to be moving into over the next few weeks, is book planning and coming up with something that we all want to work on together, and just noodling around with that through the course of the rest of the year. Other intentions for anyone who wasn't here last week: it will be better than Twilight, you're right. It's hard not to be. Tired German, I'm probably going to be the initial editor as well as the initial writer. So yeah, that's going to be fun. And then we're going to have to find somebody else who wants to look over it as an editor, which will be very fun. Yes, here, please edit this book. It was written by Twitch chat and some crazy people. So plans over the rest of the year. I'm currently working on a project that Mr. Tex has very kindly dropped in my lap, which I'm very excited about, Once that's done and my last commissions of the year are all organised and sorted out, my intentions for this winter, now that I'm in my house with my setup and my things and I'm happy, is putting the compendium into a much more usable format for everyone, writing up the book as we start working on it, and also doing the rewrite of Hungry Like the Wolf in the style of Chuck Tingle, because we have some writing skills in this chat. We can do these things, so that's where we're going. All right, so the very first thing that you need to do to write a book is decide what the fuck you want to write. And because we're going to be doing this communally, I figured we need a poll to decide what genre we want to write in before anything else. And for me, that is one of the places. We are not doing a romance. If I'm already rewriting Hungry Like the Wolf as a Chuck Tingle book, I'm not writing 2 romances. And I was having this conversation with Lichter before stream started. The first Shoal book can't be a romance. It just can't. We don't have enough understanding and depth and meaning, and no, we're not doing a romance. The first rule of novel writing is have fun. I mean, the first rule of wanting to write a novel is having fun, and then you actually sit down to do it, and the word fun doesn't reappear again until you get to the far side.
Yep.
So
You need to enjoy it, but
Yes.
enjoying something means you just keep doing that.
one of the things with the arts, and I think it applies to many arts, but it's definitely very clear in writing, is for a lot of people, the arts are an outlet and it's just something you do for fun as a hobby, and that's completely valid and fine and no problem. However, when you want to do something like complete a full novel, or if you do any of the arts as your paid job, you're going to hit at some point a point where you have to do something you don't want to do, or something has a deadline and you're not in the mood, or you hit artist block for one reason or another. You don't have the luxury at that point of saying, oh, well, I'll just put it down for now because this isn't fun at the minute. You have to find your ways to push through. I think that will be a topic for another stream where we can dig into it really in detail. Artist block is a very interesting concept, especially when you're talking to people who do art for a living, of which I am now one of those people. And I think it's something interesting to talk about, but we won't do it this week. Right. So what I think we need to do is we need to decide what genre between the lot of us that we're going to find most interesting to write in. I've got a series of 6 options, and I'm going to pop up a poll. It's going to be a straw poll. You can vote for multiple options on this poll, but you can only vote the once. So anything that you would be willing to write, choose all that apply, and we will have a look in a few minutes and see what it is that we feel like we're going to do. I'm going to give this poll 10 minutes to run, I think. So you've got 10 minutes. It's pinned for 10 minutes.
And we can also talk about it while it's going on.
So the options that I've given you guys are action adventure. We've already got some action adventure going on with our wonderful green text story of our Latical who stumbled into owning a Titan. We could do more stories in that regard. We've got our Cephalonid librarian character, librarian adventurer we wrote up. If we wanted to, she could be part of a story in that genre. Action adventures are great stories. They tend to be just enjoyable. You don't have to dig too deeply into any particular themes, and you don't necessarily have to do the world's hugest amount of research for them either. They're your stories that are kind of just classically enjoyable for most people. I've also popped up the option of doing a crime thriller, which we could decide that we want to do in detective noir style. We could decide that we want to do it in a more modern style. But crime thrillers can be very interesting. They're a much more technical kind of book, with wanting to bring in some of the language and professional elements. We've been talking about that already today with, needing to have a certain degree of knowledge to sell what's going on. With crime thrillers, things like forensics tend to get brought up. And this is where you get your spectrum of everything from NCIS to etc. Yes, I know.
To Bubble 07.
Yeah, but Bubble 07 would also be in there, which is where you've decided that no, we're not going to do technical forensics. We are going to play with just fun stuff and suavity and martinis, and you can tell if somebody's gay or not based on whether they can whistle. Which was a thing that Arthur Conan Doyle wrote.
Our first book should be Mernraker. That's what I'm hearing.
Be an option.
I agree. However, I'm just saying, anyone who's going to bring up forensics bullshittery is going to have to be the first one to sit with me and explain to me how it works underwater.
You'd have a different set of forensics, but we've also got our psionics, so psionic imprinting would become part of the forensics. So it would give us a lot to play with if we decided we wanted to go with that genre.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's just that I want to see the forensics expert starting to explain to me things about dust and spread patterns. and then I'm going to let loose the fluid mechanics physics guy. and then and just step well away and let the stuff cook, because this is going to be a wrestling match in about 3 sentences.
We could also do a mystery book, which I'm sort of thinking things along, your Agatha Christie books. And mystery books are really interesting to write because you kind of write them in reverse as the author to what you then need to present to the audience. Because as the author, you need to know how it ends and how, the mystery got there, whether it's a murder mystery. So you need to know how the person was killed and then how you're going to obfuscate that. And you can get into quite some intense thinking to handle all of that, or whether you're writing something that's more sort of a legend kind of mystery, something like The Last Templar, or oh god, what were the books? They were really popular at one point. The Da Vinci device and that series, those books, whether you're writing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Fantasy. Dan Brown, thank you. That's who I was thinking of. The fantasy genre, I think we all know very, very well, and what goes into those. Lictor suggested that we had the option for war drama so that we could really highlight the Titans, which I know for me, if we decide to go down that route, that's one of my areas of weakness with writing, so that would be a very interesting one to investigate. And I put paranormal in there. I know somebody mentioned in chat about horror. There's a reason I didn't put straight horror on here. I think the first book can't be romance and it can't be horror. Simply because we need something more structurally foundational before we dig into those elements. Because what is romantic for the Sholey and what is horrifying to them is going to be a step removed from where the average audience is. And I'd like our first book to be something that's a little bit easier to ground in the head of, Joe Schmuckatelli, who's just bumbled into this with no background knowledge. Rather than starting there.
It needs to be a character. First ensign.
I could see another.
Joe Schmuckatelli.
I can see another thing that's popped up in chat is somebody has said, what about an anthology of short stories with overarching genre? I'd like us to do that as well. But what I'd like for that to be is user submitted stories, to take everything we've learned from doing this stream from January all the way through to, when we're a little bit further along, where you guys know what the resources you have available are, and I can make all those available to you, and give you guys the option to write some stories of your own, either completely solo, if you have a co-writer you want to work with, and then we can put those together without it having to be filtered through the way I approach writing. because you guys at the moment are very, very much stuck with me, kind of with a hand on the rudder. You guys are turning it, but I've been endeavouring to make sure it doesn't turn too far one way or the other. But that's all based on my perception of how things should be. And I think once we've gotten a little bit further through this and you guys have the same level of knowledge I have, it would be nice to let people write things without me being involved at all and see what you do with it. Because that would be fascinating and cool, and we could have an anthology of things you guys wrote.
Yeah, agreed.
Always good to sharpen yourself on your weaknesses. It is. The reason why I have a weakness with war drama is going to be one that's particularly difficult for me to overcome, but we'll play with it. We'll play with it. We'll see what happens if that's what gets chosen. Erica says you can always add horror elements, and yeah, you absolutely can. Even when you select a genre, just because that's your primary genre you're writing, and you're probably going to be pulling little bits from other genres into it anyway. That's just how it works. Nothing ever fits truly neatly into a single box if you've done it correctly. And then there's Zork. Yes, Zork is to blame for many things.
Why do you think we're keeping Zork here? We need a scapegoat.
Yes. Yes, when Night Owl comes at me with the disapproving eyes because we invented another war crime despite Night Owl's best efforts, I'm like, blame Zork. Zork's fault.
That's true.
All
It's
right.
a good fault.
We've got a few more minutes on this poll. Does anybody have any questions about any of the genres? Anything you want me to say on that?
Zork is not the seed of chaos, Ramos. I'm sorry. He is not a seed. He is definitely the fruit of chaos, though.
Zork is an aspirant of the toy maker. I think the best first book would have a human main character encountering Shoal for the first time. That's certainly something we could write. I didn't put, that was one thing I didn't put on here, is I didn't put straight sci-fi. We could go on a more sort of sci-fi route if we wanted to. If fantasy wins, that could be one of our options, is to make it a sci-fantasy, because of course we've got these slight fantasy elements with our setting anyway. And if you decide that you want to have a human main characters, you can have the human character approaching it with a very sci-fi attitude based on what we know of life, etc. And then of course you have the fantasy elements coming from what they encounter. So we will have that as an option.
So the thing is,
think-
sci-fi is a filter that you could put on literally
that's
any of
very
what
true.
you've got up here,
That is
because
very
action and
true.
adventure, sci-fi action and adventure is, like your Star Wars movies or things similar. War drama, Starship Troopers comes to mind among others. Ender's Game.
Yes.
I'm thinking that we're confusing a little bit. I don't think sci-fi boils down to a filter. Sci-fi is also speculative.
Yes.
I think that good sci-fi usually revolves around how specific technologies disrupt and change society, and not just tell a specific story. This is why the good sci-fi books. One moment.
Keep going.
And I think that if we are going to try and tell a sci-fi story about Shoal, we're going to have to speak to how the entirety of the society is built different and how it reacts different. That would be a sci-fi approach to Shoal.
Yes.
It would be a world building, not a world building book, but it will have plenty of slice of life and world building in it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and my argument really is that you can combine that with making a adventure story or a mystery or a crime thriller. You can absolutely explore the sci-fi elements of what the vast differences in technology, nature, etc., how that impacts the society that we're exploring, while doing it through the lens of a crime thriller where you get to see what daily life is on the streets of a city in Shoal, and how the environment and the technology make it so different and alien from Earth. Or a war drama. You can do both at the same time.
We can, and we'll figure out what we're going to do.
you can do both. I was just hinging on that sci-fi as a genre, not as a filter.
It can be
Is
both,
a
yeah. You can either have it as a filter or as a genre all its own.
No.
Yeah. So I was just pointing out,
Yeah.
not
I
to
No,
be
guess
you're quite
I
right, both
guess
of
my
you.
I guess my better way of putting it is what we've got listed are potential subgenres that can be written in sci-fi.
And I only presented 6 that made sense. There are so many genres book can fit in. I can see we've been joined by Dreamcaster. Welcome in. Pleasure to see you. And yes, we're talking about writing. We've been doing very crazy things on this stream, like inventing an entire world with Twitch chat. And now we're going to write a book. Introspective thinks that Benny should pop up. I think categorically, at some point, Benny does need to appear in the story. Either briefly or in depth, we will figure it out. But I do
We'll
think
figure it out.
Benny the Mech
And
will
in the
make an
credits.
appearance. And
And in the
absolutely, he'll be in the credits. All right, let me go and take a look and see what the results of our poll were, as it has now run its course. Let me take a look. So, action adventure has come out on top. War drama in close second. So, what if we did an action adventure story that has we try to make sure we've got that Titan focus in there. We try to make sure that Titans are a core part of whatever our action adventure story should be.
Absolutely.
Categorically.
All right, let me
Yeah.
click over to Scrivener then. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new page to write on. And this is going to be our book ideas for getting started. So we know that our genre is going to be action adventure. We know that our focus is going to include Titans. And we can add other focuses in as we go along. The next thing that we're going to want to decide on is going to be what our theme should be. So, themes in literature are they're kind of about the message that you're wanting to convey to your audience without outright saying it. For an example, this is where you get your Saturday morning cartoon feel is, aha, good has triumphed once again. If you say it out loud, it comes across as very juvenile and childish and very deliberately delivering a moral, which is great for young audiences. There's a reason why that exists. But good versus evil is a very strong theme in literature that turns up in many, many, many books. It's just that in more adult books, it's not said out loud. And there will always, in good books, there will always be a theme that's kind of carrying the story through. Something that your story is emphasizing that's part of the human condition. I've said many times that for me, the arts are all about that expression of the human condition, what it means to be alive, and that any piece of writing is filtered through the completely unique experiences of the author or authors that are involved. So, common themes in literature can be love, death, power. Power is one that is the entire theme and focus of my entire trilogy in my own setting. Faith, beauty, which often comes down to, beauty from the inside. Survival, which turns up a lot in things like war stories, horror stories, etc. Sense of identity, very, very strong. And of course, family is another big one. Sometimes you have more than one theme. Quite often you'll pull in multiple. But what is the message or the point of the action adventure book that we want to write will be really important to where we go from here. Catching up on chat. Did we nail down the time of awakening for Titans? It was around the end of the war. It could be a good position to write from a Titan's point of view as they gain a true ego. We did decide that Awakened Titans was kind of part of the Forge Wars, but of course for each individual Titan, it awakens, as it's completed. So we can pick any time frame that we want to for that, if we want to go with a specific Titan.
I like Lord Trowa concept, the rise and fall. I think that a theme I'd like to see is a book about the disruption of what a Titan does when it arrives into a place where there were no Titans before,
Mm-hmm.
and the powers realigning around it, and then what happens when more Titans happen.
Okay.
It could be a short time span. It could be a few weeks. It could be years. I mean, you can build the outlook on. But essentially, what I want is a book whose theme is the disruption and reaction of Shoali people to Titans. At the beginning, there's no Titan, or there's one Titan, and we're looking at the eyes of Titan and the pilot,
Mm-hmm.
and how they see the people who have no Titans around them for whatever reason, and how they react to it. And this is a lot, and this to explore the Titans and their effects. And this contrast, this tension gives us a the substance of drama to work with.
Okay. So
This is again, I don't know if I'm even speaking in the correct
no, I understand what you're
terms.
saying.
Drama requires tension. So tension is one angle of the story have no Titans, they don't know what to do or how to handle them, and the other side have Titans. And now and there's has to be a reconciliation, probably with fireworks.
Okay, so what we're going to be looking at there is, as our sort of core theme, is going to be the concept of power.
Yes. Because Titans are power.
Yes, yes, they are. Okay, we can do that. So I think the next thing that we will need to decide on with that, one Titan, Parathragna, get out. What we'll need to decide then with that is, do we want this to be set in the tailing end of the well, not even the tailing end, but part of the Forge Wars where Titans are becoming a thing, or do we want this to be set in a more rural area of Shoal where the Titans are now moving into, and it's not necessarily directly set within that war footing?
So we're looking at an action adventure, not necessarily a war drama.
No, but the framework of the when and the where is still going to be important regardless of which it is.
So my thoughts are something a bit closer to your basic kaiju plot, your kind of your Pacific Rim plot,
Hmm.
where instead of it being Titan on Titan, or at least as far as the primary ultimate conflict, I think it would be better for an action adventure to be, introducing the Titan to a more rural area where it's then the ability to go and deal with the assorted dangers that are threatening the local area, and also in looking at what new conflicts having a Titan arrive brings to the area as well, because it's going to bring attention to an area that previously was very sleepy. But at the same time, it's the tool they need to deal with whatever the local problem is. Like, make it a
And
questing knight errant Titan showing up to deal with a Leviathan problem, and then you have all of the problems that come with having such a character arrive.
Aiden,
Yes?
are you describing a Westerner with a Titan?
I wasn't originally thinking that, but you absolutely could. You could
Um,
100% make it a Western with a giant robot.
Frontier with a giant robot.
Okay, so
Why not?
Ed is bringing up a valid point. I think this is maybe something we need to establish first. If we're going with this, because the way that we've been discussing Shoal so far is that Titans are a normal part of Shoaly life by this point, by the time humans turn up. If we're doing something where there's areas that haven't yet experienced Titans, we're writing a story that's set somewhat in Shoal's past, which means we wouldn't have the human element yet, which is completely fine. we just need to decide whether, as a group, we're happy with writing a story that's from somewhere a little bit in Shoal's past, as opposed to where we're at in Shoal's present day. And I think that's something that should really be a poll, and
I
let
haven't all.
chat make a decision one way or the other. What is your alternative?
So just because Titans are a relatively common factor in Shoal doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be everywhere, in the same vein that while, let's say, in America modern day, planes and planes and helicopters are very much commonplace, but not everywhere has an airfield, much less one that caters to, the
Yes.
really fancy stuff. Well, hang on, let me
Okay.
get to it.
Okay.
So you could still have the impact of, in a modern day shoal setting, an expedition is being set to go find, go explore. God, I can't remember the name of the place now. I'll have to pull up the document to get it. One of the places that the silence swept through, that the quiet went through, that are rumored to be treasure troves, but are very dangerous, for example. And a group of Titan pilots are wanting to stage an expedition to see if they can explore this lost area and bring something back in a very Uncharted or Indiana Jones style pulp adventure, just with giant robots. And of course, the staging area may not be a place that gets a lot of Titan traffic. They get, the occasional passing through, but now you have a whole squad of them that just roll into town all at once, and everybody's like, this is new.
Okay, I'm more on board with this because you know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
The Mummy.
Yeah.
And that
Pulp
could be
adventure.
really fun to write a pulp adventure of that sort.
Pulp adventure would be fantastic. And then they at some point bumble it up and reactivate a strain of some kind of virulent, bringing the silence to
Which
expand.
allows
And they
us
have
to explore the full psionics and weirdness that is Shoal.
Yeah, just straight up bring up another god.
Benny! You're on the wrong side of the current!
Exactly.
Of course, Benny belongs in this story, but yeah, okay. Okay,
But yeah,
how do we feel about that, chat? This could actually be a really fun story.
I am a sucker for a good pulp adventure,
Yes,
so
yes, and it is one of the best.
Just bring us a bunch of explorers into the skeletal remains of a leviathan. Have them retrieve something, have it studied. We can see everything bringing from the outside into a city, bringing it in, and then shit hits the fan.
here's an idea actually
Faster
for
than
how
a nautical can get under.
Yeah. And here's an idea, because we were talking about how a human element would be a good idea for introducing Shoal as a setting. One of the members of the team through which the story is told is a human researcher who's tagging along with this expedition. And of course, it's the person who doesn't know the full scope of what's going on that their curiosity as a researcher triggers the bad thing. And all the Titan pilots are like, you idiot, how could you? And he's like, how the hell was I supposed to know?
And then if we bring in maybe a small local group that lives in the area, that doesn't have Titans, just a small group of Shoalie that happens to live nearby, and it's their knowledge of the area, etc., that helps to solve the problem in the long run.
Yeah. Yes. That's a yes for me. What do you think, Chad?
Edwin,
I'm not seeing chat
I
saying
agree.
anything negative. I think this could be a very fun first story to write, and it allows us to keep it in modern day with Shoal. It allows us to explore a lot of the really cool things that we've written. We can touch on many of the things that we've put effort into. It allows us to have the human character. We can bring in some of the elements that Erica has written up, which I need to do a full detailed read through of all of that. I think this would be quite a fun book, and it's not going to be too. It's not going to be one of those books that gets really difficult to write, where you hit periods where you're like, I need to go through the really depressing bit now, and I've just got to soldier my way through this. We can have fun with this, I think.
I think having fun with this should be one of the focuses
Yeah,
of the
especially
book.
with working with chat, and I know there are some people in chat who haven't written before, and I'd like this to be an enjoyable experience for everyone. So yeah, I think a pulp action story would be a very good idea.
With Zork giving us so many world-ending options,
Yeah. I-
we can definitely cook up something terrible to be pulpy about.
Okay, I'm going to write up these thoughts. You two entertain chat for a minute because I'll need to think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm liking what Ed Gauss is saying because that's the thing I was trying to allude to. The locals know what Titans are. It's just that the local scene doesn't support
Yeah,
Titans. They don't
I mean, the point
need
I was
them.
going to bring up when you were originally talking about it, when you were saying helicopters and like it's, yeah, okay, you have places that don't have those much, but because of, television and the internet, etc., it's not like people aren't aware of what they are and what to expect.
Yeah,
So in terms of that, it's not that big a deal, but in terms of, what we've now discussed with this pulp adventure, that makes more sense.
yeah. I
The,
mean,
the way
I,
the way I'm looking the way I'm looking at it is it's not what we discussed, but then again, we are if a helicopter there's a difference between seeing helicopters on TV and having an Apache land in your front lawn.
Yeah.
yeah, like there was the news story where at a local sports field in a small town, just a couple military helicopters landed and picked somebody up and then flew away, and it became a big deal for that town for a short stint. Also, the
Yeah,
dogs are shouting in the background.
hello dogs.
and, and
Anka
yeah,
is very upset by the concept of people right now.
indeed. Yeah, it's like if a Blackhawk landed on the local baseball diamond, it would draw a crowd.
Oh yeah, and if that town is, if somehow that the Black Hawk is somehow unaffiliated and is willing to do things for the townspeople, well,
This is like the one guy, I can't remember where he's from, who privately owns a Harrier, and he'll take it out to air shows and the like just because he has a Harrier. He likes flying it. He owns it.
don't ask too many questions. You won't hear that many lies.
I mean, it's legally acquired, legally his. He just has a lot of money from his career and decided that what he really liked doing was flying, you know, cool aircraft. So he does that now for fun. It's like,
I am not arguing against. I am merely saying such events usually come with many questions.
yeah, it's fair.
Any, it takes a certain sort of person to have the desire to own a Harrier, as opposed to owning many other things.
I mean, my understanding is the guy was a military test pilot who learned how to fly jets while in uniform service. So it was very much just him taking what he did for the military and going, I enjoyed this enough that I want to keep doing it.
I know the
But yeah,
feeling.
no, you're right. It takes a special kind of person to decide with the buku buckets of money that, you know what I want to buy? A hole in the sky you pour money into. Because the amount of money it costs to hover in fuel just to hover for a few seconds in that thing is mind-boggling.
I'm sure you can actually give me the numbers, but that's for a different conversation.
I would have to go
Right.
and look it back up, but he did an interview and he made a comment about how fast the thing guzzles fuel when it's in a hover. It's speedy. Like as much as Call of Duty popularized the idea of the Harrier just kind of hovering over a site, providing, fire support.
Yeah.
That's not how those things work.
video games being inaccurate about military operations?
I mean, we talked
Say
about
it.
this,
Say it
right?
ain't so.
Well, we talked about it earlier. It's if you aren't
I am
explicitly versed professionally in a thing and you make something creative about it, you're probably gonna get a few things wrong.
I am not going to talk about artillery with anyone in any game at all ever again. Okay?
I don't doubt it.
Never. Anyhow,
Let's
uh,
see. What do we got from chat? The human leans on what they think is a wall, but it's the on button to something bad. Yeah, I mean, that's very again, the mummy comes to mind.
Yes, we can play
the,
with all of
there,
that sort of nonsense.
all I'm waiting is for the show is going to scream at the human, "Can't you hear it?" And he's like, "What? It's all quiet in here." And they're looking at him. Exactly, you moron. It's an
Here we go,
absolute
Baron of
silence.
Derpshire. You did the sound of silence with Professor Polypondry, the dead zone of the quiet's first bloom. I don't think you attached it to an area, so we can choose where we want this to be attached to. And of course, it was the inspiration for the sound of silence.
Yes.
Yes, I do keep all of the notes.
Silence touched Leviathan eggs would make a fun target for the just any kind of Leviathan threat that's bringing the silence bloom with it would be a reason for the Titans to throw happy slaps with a Titan-sized enemy.
We have a
Yep.
title for these things.
Yes. Like
We do.
if we're gonna have Titans involved in the story, then having a reason for them to show off their stuff makes sense.
Yeah. I think that one of the things that's going to be interesting, I mean, just at one point you can just show what happens to a Titan when the quiet takes over.
Ooh.
From the possible, I know we said we were not going to, but just imagine a pilot sitting in a Titan as the quiet takes over.
I mean, in a lot of pulp adventures, you have the supporting characters to the main protagonists. Not all of them make it.
No, yeah,
Yep.
you have to have stakes that mean something. Otherwise, it's it doesn't hit as hard. So the next thing we'll need to decide are what some of our core characters are going to be to take part in this story, because they will also help to form some of the story concepts. So we know we're going to have a human character. What should our human character be like? We know they're going to be a researcher. That's why they're here.
I would imagine curiosity needs to be a core character trait to justify the role we've been kind of bantering about so far.
Yep, and that makes them. They need to be very curious, not just so that they can, accidentally cause the problems that they cause, but also enough to overcome the inhospitableness of Shoal. They're going to
Yeah.
have to be more curious than they are cautious for them to even want to go and do this sort of nonsense in the first place.
There is one very important thing, though, that they need to have as a character quality, and this honestly will need to be shared with most of the protagonists, because otherwise you have story writing by means of the idiot ball, and
We don't want the idiot ball. I hate riding idiot
no.
ball.
So they need to be competent in at least some meaningful, useful to the team fashion. Because if they're just there as the bumbling sidekick, then they're not a primary character. They're the comic relief support.
Yeah.
They need to have competence in some useful field.
Can I suggestion?
Yep.
One of the few size sensitive humans coming on show for mentorship, essentially trying to figure out Sholy way of doing things because
Okay.
they can hear it, but they don't have a lifetime of experience, nuance in it. They're the Batman to Bane's entire soliloquy about I was born in it. Batman just trained in it, and in darkness, and the idea is that they're coming to show they have some sort of innate instinct understanding, but they don't have the whole of it. They don't have the lifetime of experience. So they can come in for mentorship, for tutelage. They're young enough and flexible enough to learn, and they're here curious and open to what's going on.
Yeah.
And they're bumbling enough because they want to know, and they might touch the things they're not supposed to touch. And this is both why they're somewhat alien to their own people, to the other humans, while giving us a good view of why they're here.
Okay, so I'm going to put in here somewhat socially awkward with humans due to their latent skill. Therefore, used to not fitting in with the group.
Which they still shouldn't fit in with the
Correct, they
rest of
won't
the
fit in with the
characters.
Scholli either because they're human.
Exactly. And Das Gruben, hope you're having a good time at Valheim, for one. And
Oh,
we are
Valheim's so
coming
good.
up with the framework for the first story to be written in Shoal.
Yes, we've decided we're writing a pulp adventure story, which is going to be very, very fun.
Yes.
Okay, so we know we're going to need our human researcher. How many Titans should we have on the expedition? I'm thinking we need at least 3 and be willing to sacrifice 1 to the story.
3 and definitely sacrifice 1, maybe 2. But have the one of them repaired and used at the 11th hour.
Okay. And 1
Yeah.
gets lost to the story. 1 gets damaged but comes back in the 11th hour. And 1 is the sort of hero focus. I'm going to put that in inverted commas because what that means will be in flux. Okay, what do you think, chat? Any thoughts on what sort of Titans we want to have for this? We're probably not going to go with purely military Titans. We're probably not going to be going with agricultural Titans because that wouldn't make sense either. I'm wondering if these are maybe Tide Wardens, or whether we're perhaps drawing from, because, okay, let's take a step backwards. We've got this expedition going in. It's probably going to be funded by a bank because we know our librarian banker adventurers are kind of a thing, and they're going to have the funding and the interest in this. So does that mean that these Titans are either Tide Wardens that have been employed to be part of this expedition, or are they Titans that belong to a banking branch that are part of an expeditionary force that goes out regularly?
Why not a little bit of both to give you the clash of ideology between the Titan pilots?
Yeah, we could. We could have from both.
Funny wording. There's the Temple Guard belonging to the bank,
Yep.
and there's the Tide Wardens. And the Tide Wardens in here are mercenaries shoring up. There's 1 Temple Guardian,
Okay,
or
1
Temple Guard.
Titan. Oh, hang on, that's not a 1. There we go. 1 Titan is a Temple Guardian, funded and provided by the bank, bankrolling the expedition. Okay,
I'm seeing some fun thoughts in chat.
I'll have a look in a minute.
Go-
Let's let Lichter finish
Yep.
his thought.
Yep, go on, Lichter.
And the other 2 are mercenaries, Tide Guardians, that are essentially hired to escort the thing. And if we attach the human to the Temple Guard, we have an inside conflict between them, as Ivan said. And also, we have the conflict of not just ideology, but conflict of interest. Temple Guard has a very specific goal in mind. The Tide Guardians come from a more egalitarian. They want to the convoy, the people,
Hmm.
and possibly even the community they're going to run into.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not leaving these people behind. There's a freaking nether god awakening under their feet.
Yep, I like that idea. Let's see what chat has to say. Um, Concerning characters, can we have the mentor for the human be a latical? Yeah, we could certainly have a latical in here. We'll come back to that thought in just a moment. Um,
Yeah, yes, Doctor Who. We can have pants.
Ed Gauss, the repaired Titan, gets used by the
I
human in the
have
last hit
already
effort.
put that in as an option. One of the Titans being a survivor of the Silence War there to face their past. That's a really good idea. Yes, it should be one of the Tide Wardens.
And
Very
you
good.
could, if there is a heroic sacrifice moment to be made, we now have our front runner candidate for who gets it.
Yes.
Or if we
The
want to do the big
grizzled
twist,
mentor.
have somebody else shove him out of the way and say, "Hell no, you're the one who knows best how to deal with this. You
Okay.
don't get to do that."
You don't get to die.
This Titan either sacrifices itself or the other one shoves it out the way in a moment of crisis because it's the one who best knows how to deal with the threat. And then what would be really nice is if we go with that second one, and we can make that decision as the story unfolds, but if we go with that second one, what would be really cool in the finale of the story is the memory core of the sacrificed Titan is recovered.
Yeah, like the benthic in my
Exactly.
short
Exactly.
Yep.
story. The temp score.
Introspective saying that there needs to be at least one former ceratinoid pirate. What if the pirate is the one that pulls the, sucker punch, you're not allowed to make the sacrifice, and it's the big, redemption twist?
Of a ceratinoid drop pirate.
Yep, the drop pirate that everybody thinks is ready to just cut and run because they are the mercenary of the group. Like, yeah, multiple of the group are mercenaries, but they're the one that is absolutely in it for the paycheck and not in it for the self-sacrifice, who turns around and pulls that low blow, and it's like, oh shit. Now we know it's serious because even that guy was like, this is too important for it to go down the way it was about to go down.
I want to see that ceratinoid just looking at the grizzled old guy and just like, we're ceratinoids. We're used to old things. You don't get to die so as you're useful. The most ceratinoid thing today. You don't die until you finish your usefulness.
Thought to be.
You don't get to die until the job's done.
Yep.
Probably responsible. So this would mean that. Okay, we'll come back to that thought. Thought to be an ex-pirate, loyal mostly to himself, probably responsible for saving someone at his own expense once the trouble gets really out of hand. Okay. What do we want to do with the idea of having a latical as part of the party? We know we wanted them to be the mentor to the human. What else do we want with the latical?
They're a banker.
They're a banker? Okay.
Yep.
Mm.
They're a banker, but they're not our world banker. They are Sholey bankers.
Yeah. Banker librarian.
Their job, but they're radical on top of all of this.
Mhm.
Their job is to make sure that everything's working smoothly. They're the in between. They are the understated behind the roles leader. Like they're not bankrolling it. That's the twist. That's the knife. It being Sholey. They're not moving it with money.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving it with influence and understanding social gravity.
I mean, we did establish some time ago that some of the most badass on Shoal are the bankers because they're not just bankers, but they're also historians and kind of the whole monk vibe for retention of knowledge and expansion of knowledge.
That's what
So
I'm
the
getting
dude,
at.
yeah, so we're talking very much a warrior monk kind of archetype, if I'm understanding what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking someone who's, I mean, if he's a mentor for a human, he has to be, they need to be exceedingly flexible in their mindset
Yeah.
in order to
Yes.
pull this off.
And of
You just,
course,
Mhm.
mental flexibility is one of the innate traits that makes for a better Titan pilot.
Yeah, maybe they have been a Titan pilot
Yeah, let's
in the
not have
past.
the Latical be a Titan pilot at the current time, but
Yeah.
having that as a background would be good.
They might be the one who walks the human through the basic operation at the critical
Yes.
moment at the end. Like, they physically can't anymore, but they can talk the human through how to get the Titan to move.
If you want to go full pulp, the Latical is deaf. This is why you can get with a human
Oh, that's a cool idea.
because the a human sensitive is a surely deaf is a surely deaf can't hear.
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm coming across.
No, no, I like the way you're thinking here. Because that would be a really big handicap for them. But at the same time, it's a handicap that would simultaneously make them more relatable to humans because they don't have so much extra going on beyond human capabilities for communication.
Exactly. Yeah, link burn pilot. That's a wonderful. Baron, perfect. That's the word.
Yes.
Link burned pilot.
There is a character in the Pern books whose name escapes me, but he is a former dragon rider. His dragon went between and died and severed the emotional link that they had. And he is in charge of raising a young lordling who's taking over an area of the planet and ends up accidentally bonding with a dragon. And the character interactions there, I can see that working with this kind of character. I've seen this character archetype before, is what I'm saying, and it's a very compelling and enjoyable one.
Okay.
We get to play with some real
Interesting.
human emotions there. And
Yes,
yes, I did say, Pern, I have first editions of all the books on my shelf behind me. I am a very big lover of the Pern. Uh, if there's side Earth, they could,
Yeah.
yes. Humans would be good at relating with the newly tone deaf. Yes. Yep. Yeah, I like these ideas. Are there, and well, we can always add more characters as we go along. We've got some of our basic ones here. We know we've got our 3 Titans. We know we've got the one special ceratinoid, but there will be others as well. We've got our
We're going
latical.
to have color.
So I'm thinking that a core cadre of characters, your primary characters, you probably
Mhm.
want to keep down to about 4,
Mhm.
maybe 5. And again, I'm basing this off of pulp films and stories that I am fond of. Indiana Jones, you have let's say Last Crusade. Dr. Jones Sr., you have Salah, and you have Marcus Brody. They're like the 4 main protagonists. And then you have other characters that support them.
Mhm.
The Mummy, you've got Evie and her brother. You've got oh, what's his name? O'Connell, and I can't remember the actor or the character's name. The Guardian character that they meet up in the desert, the dude that rips the Bren gun off of the airplane at the very end and goes in with
Yes.
them.
Yeah. So
The Egyptian guy.
we are going to need to have a local savant, somebody who's a local from the area who knows it really well. They will become important.
Okay. Let's talk about the area for a second. Let's
Yeah.
take a look at the map.
Do
and
you,
get inspired a bit.
let me bring the map over and zoom in just a little bit further.
Okay, chat. The question I'm going to ask you is, where are we going? Are we going where there be dragons, literally, fuck off dragons, or are we going in a more sedated? Because if we go to the Gleamway, we can really amp up the frontier sort of a feel. Uh, yes, introspective, but furthest point is I don't think it's
Furthest
quite.
point wouldn't be the right point for this story. It's considering how insular that area is, and we wouldn't be able to get a latical down there sensibly. Not the right place for this story.
No, furthest point is where you tell a horror story about something banging on the walls from the outside while cultists are coming up from the inside. Um, Cragbound Sea.
So the way I'm thinking about this is we're sending our dudes into to do an expedition into an area that was civilized but was hit by silence and is now not inhabitable. We know that we have areas where that sort of thing could have happened, but I think it needs to be somewhere frontier enough without being completely unexpected. The Cragbound Sea doesn't work because it's never been fully settled because of how dangerous it is. So, although there's a ton of interesting expeditions to happen there, going to somewhere where there used to be a city that's been ravaged by the silence doesn't make as much sense. Now, the idea of the Gleamwake area in the South Sea, that one for me is working better at the moment because maybe there did used to be a permanent city there, but the silence hit, and that's why it's now just a migratory city that goes around and makes use of the resources in the area. Um,
How about we say that this entire thing is going on a toehold? There's an attempt, and maybe an ongoing attempt to resettle the area.
mhm.
It's regrowing because life on Shoal or Herd find a way, and there's a few towns, there's a few cities, a few few sedimentary caves that are being funded and taken care of, so to speak. And this is the frontier we're working on.
Mhm.
It's like this is a frontier, and they're trying. Sulayan, let's say that the Sulayans are trying to open up because there's a whole lot of space over there, and Sulayans love, and Salatians love their space.
Yes.
This also explains why the Salatians are nearly absent because they're the distant bank, they're the distant powerful corporation that funds this entire thing without ever touching it themselves. They're kind of in the background.
Yeah. And
They're the bankrollers.
yeah, so if they're bankrolling it because we want to make this area more habitable and we need to go in and investigate this, etc. If our expedition is operating out of Songorge, which is in the abyssal depth, that's where we're staging from. We're also on the end of a pirate route there, so this gives us plenty of opportunity to be grabbing our mercenaries from the pirate route. That's how we get our Ceratinoid who comes in. We've also got the Silver Current passes by Songorge as well. That's where we're picking up our Tide Warden contracts from, and then we're heading into the Gleamwake area. So they're timing it to link up with the migratory city to get to the area where they're going to be dropped off to then begin the expedition into the area that they're interested in. That could be the correct area of the world to do it for.
And of course, that makes a lot of sense that you have all that lead up because one thing that is important in a decent pulp setup is that, your first quarter to third of your story is going to be the setup before you get to the actual action. You have to show where your characters are coming from, why they're going to do the thing that they're doing, and get all of the scene setting and mood setting sorted. That way, it's all done, and when everybody starts doing things and the action takes off, it you don't need to break the action to expound upon background stuff in most instances and break the flow because you've already established everything that's important.
This actually gives us a number of very good vistas. We start from Song Gorge, we go from the deep, we pick up a pirate, we start with the Temple Guards, we pick up the pirate, we pick up the Tide Guardians, and then we go out into the wild. We can paint a picture of the area and move from a city. We're showing what a city is in Shoal, and moving into the convoy, and then we're settling in it. So we have all the transition in this. Yeah, that works beautifully. I don't
And the
remember. Song Gorge is what's the theme we went with there?
Give me a moment. I will bring up everything we'd written about Song Gorge. If this baby girl would stop kicking me in the ribs.
the migratory city is also a good call because it gives the team a place to fall back to after everything goes wrong so that they can figure out what they've done and what they need to do to move forward because
And it
they're
also gives you that disconnection from the easy ability to just run away in the instant because, well, we can't get to them. You know, it's on its migration. You have to wait until the points where it's close enough to you to get picked up.
exactly. And of course that could give some very big tension at the end. Is like we have to time this
Yes.
do or die effort because if we don't time it right, then when the problem solution goes down, we might end up stranded and we're just as screwed as whatever it is we're dealing with.
Yeah, and also if we don't solve this, then when the migratory fleet passes by, it's going to, the problem is going to latch onto them and then spread to all of Shoal. It gives us some good stuff to play with.
Baron of Derpshire is
Oh.
trying to offer up a character as local guide.
I will have a look in just a moment. I was asked about Song Gorge. Song Gorge was our city of history, carved into the fault line stone of an ancient undersea gorge and laced with resonance reactive coral.
Perfect.
Generated in the closing years of the Forge Wars. And it's one of our places where we were allowing for performative combat, which works again with our pirates and makes it really easy for us to get that hiring of mercenaries going on. Grudges are aired in the ring, as are debates, debts and declarations. A lot of culture comes out of Song Gorge, and it can be a lot more ritualistic and brutal than other parts of the...
And this is why we're getting a human.
Yes,
there,
a human would be
weird.
acceptable here.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think this works. I think this is the exact area we should put it.
It does sound like it makes a lot of sense.
My dungeon master brain is already writing a West Marches game set out in this region with a bunch of adventurers coming in and out of towns in the Gleam Wake migratory city, trying to figure out the mystery of why this place nobody manages to settle it, and just the tensions with the migrants and the migratory city and the shoal banks. Yeah, no, this is great. This is excellent.
Okay, so
Creative
we want
juices
our
flowing.
local to be Arkia. Is that how it's pronounced? Arkia? A albino shark girl. She's our
Cool.
local guide. Okay, let me add her in.
So she is from the Gleam Wake city.
Arkia, albino shark.
She can be a lemon shark.
Albino shark girl. Okay, interesting. We've come up with some good ideas. All right, so this has taken us an hour, and we've got the outline of an entire book, and we're already playing with tropes, which are not a bad thing. Tropes exist for a reason, as do cliches. things become tropish and cliched because they work as long as you use them correctly, or if you subvert them correctly. When you just use the same formula over and over and over again, things can get very boring. But I think we have plenty of opportunity to put unique spins on some of the classical ideas we're playing with. I like the idea of some of the characters that we've got. We know roughly what our story is going to look like. We know that we're a clear beginning, middle, and end. Our beginning is this expedition is going to go out there. Our middle is, okay, we've reached it, and oh shit, we've unleashed something we shouldn't have. And our ending is how we resolve that problem and what the expedition then takes home. We'll need to decide exactly how many acts we think this should be broken down into. So very basics are beginning, middle, and end is your 3-act structure. Most books benefit from being more complicated than that, unless you're writing for a younger audience. 5 to 7 acts is usually what happens because, as somebody was mentioning earlier, one of the things that's really fun is the concept of the rise and the fall. But rise and fall and rise again requires that little bit of extra. And that's the human experience, is we tend to get confident about certain things in our lives until we hit a stumbling block that knocks us back. But human perseverance is a thing, and we overcome it. That is an innate part of being alive. You're always learning, you're always developing, and new challenges are always showing up. So I think at minimum we'll want a 5-act structure. I don't necessarily think we need to go as complex as a 7-act structure. For 7 acts, generally what you want there is where you're following one character specifically through a challenge. So I think a 5-act structure is what will serve us best here.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Though I think, for the benefit of me, who does connect, I would like. Could you please elaborate a tiny little bit? I know we're
Absolutely.
stretching the time.
No, we're fine because we've technically got another hour until Striker's here. So we can use all that time because nobody else is scheduled in.
I'm going to. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, you brought it on yourself. I'm just here and abusing the fact that you're so willing.
Abusing, he says.
Yeah, as if this isn't one of my
Yes.
favorite things. Okay, so the 5-act story structure is a really old narrative form. So the 3-act structure we've already spoken about. It's the thing you learn in school. Beginning, middle, end. I'm sure I don't need to elaborate more on that. But the 5-act structure, what you're looking at is a plot that's kind of split into 2 distinct phases. You have the world before and the world after, with the climax taking place in the middle of the story rather than at the end. So we're going to have that in terms of our sort of climax in the middle is, oh God, we've unleashed the thing. So the world before is, when everything's the way that people expect it to be. The adventure is in the going and the doing and the interactions between these different characters who might not necessarily get along. But then you have your climax in the middle of, oh God, we've unleashed something we shouldn't have. And then the world after is, well, how has that changed the relationship between our characters? How has that changed the goal that they're now attempting to achieve? How has that changed the importance of the call to action that got the story started in the first place? And how has that changed what the victory condition is now for the characters? So you're splitting your story into 2 halves, and you're giving enough time in both of those halves for there to be development and narrative structure. So you're going to sort of start out with your exposition at the beginning of the story, where you're explaining the world that you're in, why things are happened, what the current normal is that your story is starting in. And then you move to your inciting incident, which in some stories can be, an alien landed and that's changed everything, and that's why we need to go off to adventure. In my trilogy, the inciting incident is my main character's mother passes away and she finds the treasure trove love that she's been looking for the majority of her life that will allow her to move into the next phase of her plans. That's the inciting incident that makes her rise to the challenge. In terms of our group, the inciting incident is going to be joining this expedition, and that's your call to action to go out and do the thing. You're then going to have a first major turning point. So this is where the story first shifts away from what the characters think was going to happen, but what, of course, you as the author have already planned. So this might be where we start to see some tension between our Titan pilots, for example, or with our Ceratinoid pirate. You get your first turning point that brings in some complications. These complications will then ramp up with rising action before you then hit the climax. So because you've got this maybe a little bit of mistrust in the group, that's what allows for the lack of caution that lets our human interact with something that they shouldn't have, and then you get your problem, and then you're going to descend back down through falling action to a major turning point in the second half, which will be where they figure out how to solve the problem. You follow that through. The initial solution doesn't work as intended. That's kind of a big part of the 5-act structure, is that they think that they can solve the problem and it doesn't work. How do you then come back from that? And then you move on to your resolution. So Act 1 of a 5-act structure contains your exposition and inciting incident, so your normal world to get then moving on to the actual point of the story. Act 2 will include the first major turning point and the complications. Act 3 is your rising action climax, where your big thing happens that's going to change the story completely. Act 4 is when you're then moving through the characters having new goals, and how they're now trying to deal with the world after, how everything has now changed. And you'll get your major turning point. And then in Act 5, you have your catastrophe happen when their first way of solving the problem doesn't work, that then moves into the complete resolution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
At least me.
The 7-act structure then has even more ups and downs thrown into it.
Okay, I like ups and downs. It's Shokel. I mean, if he doesn't have ups and downs, what are we even doing here?
I mean, Corbin, for an alien lands on Shoal, that's just humans turning up. Yeah, pre-button pushed, post-button pushed. Correct. That's your sort of two sides of a story you get in a 5-act structure, and then you're playing with some certain elements that you want to hit on either side of that climax that's in the middle. Congratulations on going to the gym, Corbin. You deserve a cookie.
Yes.
Shoal ups and downs are how we get from A to B. And admittedly, there's that, yes. The Shoal are a bit more flexible. So I think that sort of 5-act structure is what we're going to want to go for. I think it's going to really serve us quite well to have that powerful. We're in the world after, we think we know how to fix the problem, and then it doesn't work, and now we have to come together all over again to have a successful resolution.
Yep. I like that. Okay, so these acts can actually be also landmark acts, because they can go Act 1 in the city, Act 1 Act 2 traversal and exploration. Shit happens. Shit hits the fan in terminal velocity. And then there's the scrambling part of getting to the migratory city, figuring out a solution, activating the solution, oh shit moment. And then we can get to the actual final solution, or a successful solution, because final solution is
Yes.
An awkward phrase, yes.
an awkward phrase coming out from my
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're touching on there is some of the more sort of advanced areas of writing that come in for people who've been writing for a long time, is the ability to underline the narrative key points that you're hitting with location changes can really underline the importance of this moment and really sort of put it into people's brains. And this is where you get your really good books, where when you read a chapter, like, oh, this is the chapter where this happens, oh, this is the chapter where they went there and this happened. Location and change in tone and topic help to reinforce what you're delivering to the reader inside their head, and it's an advanced technique and very cool.
I'm looking at, because you talking about act structure made me
Mm-hmm.
want to go and take a look at act structure in some of the pulp fiction, the pulp adventure stories that we've
Okay.
already referenced.
Yep.
And while it's not going in act structure specifically, I am looking at the bookmarks, or whatever they're called on YouTube videos, where a dude is basically running through the story structure of The Mummy, the
Mm-hmm.
1999 Mummy movie, and it's broken down into similar to what you were describing. You've got the world before, so
Yep, Evie's working at
normal
the
world.
library as a bumbling librarian. Yeah, you've got the normal
So
setup of the world.
Then next is,
We've got London. We move to Cairo. From Cairo to the desert,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you've got
and
the world before, you've got intro of conflict, which is where she finds the map.
Yep.
Call to adventure, which is where they start gathering, they get O'Connell, they start gathering
Yep.
themselves up
Her
for the adventure.
inciting incident is finding the map and then acting on it. That's her call to action. And because she's been called to action, it brings other people into the story as well. Yep.
Early story escalation, they get to Hamunaptra, the problems happen.
Mm-hmm.
Turning point, which is where
And
they
you have the
retreat.
conflict between the two groups that are trying to get there for the same reason, which is your initial conflict before it all goes wrong and they unleash the mummy.
Yep. So the turning point where the mummy is unleashed and they have to retreat back to Cairo.
And all of
Late
their relationships are now changed because they're in the world after. These people who had no reason to ever work together before now need to work together because they're united by the midpoint climax. Yep.
Yep, late story escalation as the American adventurer team starts getting picked off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Climactic moment where Evie gets taken by Imhotep
Yep.
and they hit the very rock bottom. Then you have the kind of light bulb moment where they realize how they can deal with the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then resolution where they go and proactively solve the problem. And it's one of those
Yep.
things of, I think this would probably hit
No,
the
it's
seven
no,
arc,
no, no, no. It's still a 5 act structure. That is the 5 act structure.
even though you've got
Yep.
multiple stages of escalation and climax.
Yep. If I just read through the 5 act structure that has all of that, we're still 5 act with
Fair,
the mummy.
fair enough.
The reason, so 7 act structure is a very specific thing. The reason I brought it up is because it's something that I use quite a lot, because I tend to, when I write, I will write a book that predominantly follows one character. I don't shift between characters. I'm in third person close. I'm following one character and their personal internal world as they're dealing with whatever my story is, because that's just my personal preference. That's where I'm most comfortable writing. And a 7 act structure relies very much on having that very intricate, narrow focus on one person. With a pulp story, you're very much reliant on the characters around them and their perspectives and reactions to things, and that's why you end up tending to stick to more 5 act. 7 act requires you to have a lot more of a deep investment in a single character, at least the way that I've always used it. So no, this is a 5 act you're discussing, but
Okay, fair
that's
enough.
why 5 act is so good, is because it has everything that the 3 act structure has, but with those extra ups and downs that make everything meaningful.
Fair enough. Your thoughts, Lichter, because admittedly we've kind of been talking, not quite
no,
over, but yeah, more or less talking over you this whole time.
no, no.
Sorry.
You've let me put the groundworks of everything so far. So all
Fair.
all I'm saying you is taking stuff. Okay, let me. So if we are going with a
Yes.
five act story, so again, like Reddit said, we start somewhere, we move, things goes to shit. There is the I think, okay, and Red, this is you're going to write this, so this is going to be mostly on your head, but I think it's going to be of value to give side scenes of the team because and I think the smart way keeping our focus on the Titans is to say that we have essentially three. They're the Titans and the people we work with them. So we have the Temple Guard Titan, which is where the human is uh, learning to be a pilot from the Latical. There's the Pirate Titan, who was pirated off the um, Tide Guard. And there's the actual Tide Guard. And now we have three factions, three prongs that have to come together work, and we can first give them an opening act of why they're coming together, because money for the most part and the desire for adventure, and we can go off and explore why they're doing this. And this is Act 1. And also learn a little bit about Songgorge at the start. And then we can see them fight among each other. Why they're fighting among each other. Act 2, when they are finding out what's that's going to happen. And finally, yeah, you're correct. The human will not be learning, but what I'm thinking is that the Titan can be an excellent environment to learn deal with psionics because it's much more beep boop. Who's beep? Am I beep booping?
No?
You are not beat booping to us, but that doesn't mean that there's not beat booping happening over Twitch. It is a known thing that unfortunately we can't do anything about on our end.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that the Titan can be the hints of the end resolution of putting the human Titan can be Titan. We can actually play bait and switch because we're going to say you a pilot in the end because you can't. You lack the needed sensitivity, and this lack of sensitivity is why the Latical is using the Titan to teach the human how to communicate or how to work with psionic. Now, we have the why they're together, Act 1, why they split apart, Act 2. Them splitting apart is why they 3, and then we have the tying back together of the activities, action, reaction, payoff,
Yeah.
the whole thing, drama.
I might need to think on this for a little bit for how I'm going to narratively put everything we're talking about together, but these are all certainly good ideas.
It is all me talking out. This is the shit post.
This is literally how books are born. Is you start with all of these ideas and you start putting them in order. So there are two schools of thought for writing books, and you have your plotters and your pantsers, or your planners and your pantsers. You have people who write by the seat of their pants and just sit down and like, wouldn't it be cool if, and start writing a story. And then you have people who plan things out. I don't understand pantsers. I don't understand how you can get to the end of a story writing by the seat of your pants and have anything mean anything, because you don't have the opportunity to tie anything in together. To me, a book has to be planned. And you start by doing exactly what we're doing here is what kind of genre do I want to write? What kind of theme? What's the message I want to impart to people? What sort of things do I want to evoke? What's fun? What would be interesting? And then you start sort of building in all these ideas like, well, okay, if I want to write this, what kind of characters do I need that will allow me to just, go through this story and present a rhythm that makes sense to a reader who's not inside my own head. And this is to me how books are born. You throw out all your ideas, you put things down together, you decide your kind of act structures you're going to have, what characters, you start building the character dynamics, and this is why it takes a month to get ready to write a book.
One, you said that you have your vital guides. Well, for me, and this is a TTRPG guide, but I like a fairly famous on these on these spots, Matthew Colville, who talks a lot about how to run role-playing games, and he's also a novelist in his past and a game designer. And one of the things he likes to say about how he wrote his is you make sure you have the bit you like, the reason, and then he works back from there. And that really helped me design scenes. Like, I need that moment in my head, like everybody looking at the human and saying in his, what? It's just silence, and everybody you're looking at.
Yes.
Exactly, you idiot.
Yeah,
And
but then how do you justify that? What do you need to put into place to allow that to have the meaning that you want it to have? You have to work backwards from it. I completely agree.
Exactly, but this is how you begin.
Yes.
You have that moment.
Yes.
You know what emotional impact you want to create, and then you start designing. Allow me to relate to Iden, School of Thought. You realize the sort of boom you're trying to make, and then you start designing a gun that will deliver.
Yes, the vehicle to deliver the boom. So the thing is one of the things I can see people talking about in chat here as well is one of the things I'd like to sort of put just a little bit of pressure on is when you're talking about running a TTRPG or being a GM, you're talking about a different product to what we're looking at here. The thing, and this is not to put any kind of disparagement on either side of the scales, because I love TTRPGs, I love novels, I love video games, I love all mediums of storytelling. But different mediums interact with their audiences in different ways and require different skill sets to make them work correctly. It's why, for example, I can't stand David Cage games, because he tries to treat video games as interactive movies. A video game is not an interactive movie, and it's why you end up with a walking simulator and a whole load of messages that he's beating you over the head with that were bloody obvious from square one. And I hate his games. He's not a good writer, and if he wants to make movies, he should make movies. He shouldn't try to make them be video games. They are different mediums. They have a different shorthand language and a different interaction with the audience. It's the
I find this highly entertaining considering your love of Hideo Kojima's work, and I know that they're very different from each other.
That's because he deliberately evokes the crossing of the mediums with an intention at the end of it, whereas David Cage just tries to force the square peg into the round hole. Intention can carry a lot, and there's times Kojima's messed it up. There's absolutely times Kojima's messed it up.
Oh yeah.
But when you are doing a TTRPG, part of the point of a TTRPG is that the input from your players and the choices they make are going to affect your story. You cannot sit down and write out to the, minutiae of this event will lead to this event on these terms, will lead to this event on these terms, because players are players. And they are going to do something you didn't expect, no matter how well you plan around them, and then you have to deal with it. And that's honestly part of the fun of playing a role-playing game. A tabletop role-playing game is what your players give you influences what you can then give back. It is very communal. And although we're looking at writing a novel communally here, with bringing in all of the ideas that you guys have and building on it, we are at the end of the day ultimately attempting to write a novel that somebody who doesn't know the setting could just pick up and enjoy. And novels really benefit from following certain elements of formula. When you don't have those formulaic elements and you just have a stream of consciousness, you have vastly reduced the audience that you will appeal to. For example, I cannot write books that are written in the stream of consciousness style. They don't flow, they don't make sense, they tend to linger on things that are important to the author that I've been given no reason to be interested in. They can be very self-indulgent and annoying, and I don't like them. That's not to say I can't write them, and I've definitely been guilty of writing stream of consciousness, but that's not the project goal that we have with what we're doing right now. So that's why I'm looking at this formulaic planning, is that it will allow us as a group to make something that's a pleasing end result.
I like what Wilf just said. With a big enough hammer, a square peg will fit in the round hole, but it won't do either peg or hole any good.
Correct. It will be an uncomfortable experience for everybody involved. And the hammer didn't even want to be here in the first place. So yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah, but, you know, video games, when they're treated correctly, are amazing storytelling mediums because they're interactive. TTRPGs are amazing storytelling in vehicles because they're interactive. A well-written poem or a well-written book because it's a curated, constructive narrative that has you here for a specific purpose can be very weighty and meaningful. There's benefits to all of them. The problems come in is when you're trying to fit parts of one into another where they don't work and you're not taking that into consideration.
I just want to defend my point that I was specifically talking about the parts about writing.
Yes.
Not a part of
Yeah, no, it
RPG.
wasn't just you I was responding to. It was also things I saw in chat. And it's just one of those things that I feel is worth discussing, is that different mediums require different touches. And while you can bring some things from one medium to another, some things you can't. I'm not saying anything you said was incorrect in the slightest.
That's okay. I can be incorrect. I've known to be wildly incorrect about anything.
I think I've admitted
But
I was
yes,
wrong at least once in my life. I deserve a medal.
I don't mind the chocolate medal. Okay. Right. So, how can we help? What can we do more?
All right,
Chat.
so what will go on from here, which we are about at the end of our normal time slot, and it might be a fairly wise place to wrap up here before we do things for next week, is what we will want to do next is to start bullet pointing out our 5-act structure, what events we want to have happen in each one, what should lead to what, and then we need to start filling out our characters and giving them proper sheets. And one of the other things that we'll need to look at is, what is our subplot going to be? Because then you can have more than one subplot, and this is where things get really interesting when we get into advanced writing, because we've got a great premise here for a good and interesting book, but subplots make things more real and more meaningful, because life is never about just one thing. So some of our character interactions and being a problem, and some of the hurdles our human is trying to come over, will probably establish what our subplots are going to be. So for all we've got this overarching plot of accidentally unleashing a potentially world-threatening issue, that's going to be our main plot, and the concept of power and all of this is our theme. But we've also got character interactions where we've got a human who's trying to find his place in a society he very much doesn't belong to, with a skill set that neither his own people recognize or the people he's among think that he's particularly good at. That's going to be a strong subplot to follow through that the Latical will be involved in. For our Tide Warden, who is a survivor of the Silence War, or whatever happened with that, and potentially our Ceratinoid with his past, they're going to have interesting subplots we want to play with. A lot of stories for their subplot will go, well, we'll just throw in a romance subplot. We're not doing that because that's cheap and it leads to bad romance stories, and I've had enough of bad romance stories lately, so we're not doing that. So we're probably going to play with our subplots in that region, and I suspect. Go on.
So you're telling me you don't want the human researcher to have a wildcat romantic affair with the bad boy
We are
crabman?
not having a human ceratinoid love tryst. No, I am not prepared. Shoal is not prepared. Chat is not prepared. Diggs is not prepared. I will be thrown off this channel for good. So
Oh,
no.
I think Ed Gauss is gonna make it work.
Human laticle romance. I wish you luck in trying to draw a sexy, voluptuous laticle better than the AI did.
Tentacle romance. Yeah.
I am not paid enough to get to it.
So
Are you trying to tell me that you don't want to do NSFW Fishman romance?
I am cutting the conversation here because anything I will say will send the Mossad after me.
Oh, outstanding.
thank you, Night Owl. Excellent quote. That was last week. Yes, there are limits. Thai German has redeemed a stretch. Please stretch, gentlemen. Anka is also having a stretch. So where I think we go from here, I think one of the things that our book is going to need because of what we're doing is I think we need a prologue. And in terms of our prologue, I think our prologue needs to be reminiscent of 40k. So you know how whenever you pick up a 40k book, you